Welcome back to my channel. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. It's great to have you here on a quiet afternoon. The sun rested gently over the rooftops of a little English village, painting the sky in soft golden tones. The traveler had been walking for days, his boots covered in dust and his mind filled with questions about where the road might lead him next. He had no real plan, only a hunger for discovery, and perhaps a secret hope that something, or someone, would change the course of his journey. The cobblestone streets, the wooden doors with their iron handles, and the smell of fresh bread drifting from a bakery all seemed like simple details, yet they whispered of a life he had never known. He paused near a stone fountain at the center of the village, the sound of water falling into its basin soothing his weary spirit. It was there that he noticed her. She stood with quiet grace, her dark hair falling in waves over her shoulders, and her eyes carrying a depth that made time slow. She was not dressed in silks or jewels, yet she seemed to glow with an elegance that needed no adornment. She looked at him once, just long enough for their gazes to lock, and in that instant the world ceased its restless turning. It is often said that the most profound meetings happen without design, as if fate itself arranges the smallest of moments to bring two souls together. So it was with them. The young traveler, who had long thought himself content with solitude, suddenly felt the stirring of something unfamiliar. It was not just admiration, it was recognition, as though he had known her before in a dream, or perhaps in another life entirely. He stepped forward with a polite bow, unsure if his voice would betray the sudden rush of his heart. She returned his greeting softly, her words shaped in a tone both delicate and certain. They spoke of ordinary things at first, the beauty of the village, the kindness of its people, the coolness of the autumn air. Yet beneath their conversation lay an unspoken connection, the sense that each word was weaving an invisible thread between them. The villagers moved around them, busy with their tasks, but to the traveler and the mysterious girl, the world felt hushed, as though nature itself had paused to listen. The way she tilted her head when she laughed, the way her eyes brightened when she described her favorite spot by the river, these were details he found himself clinging to, storing away in memory like treasures he dared not lose. And she, too, seemed to notice the way he spoke, with a mixture of earnestness and wonder. He told her of the roads he had walked, the distant places he had seen, and though his stories were simple, she listened as if every syllable carried weight. There was no judgment in her gaze, no impatience. Instead, she gave him the gift of presence, and in doing so, she awakened in him a longing he had never allowed himself to feel. A breeze swept through the square, carrying with it the faint scent of roses from a nearby garden. For a moment he thought he saw something in her expression, something guarded, as though she carried within her a truth she was not ready to share. It made her all the more mysterious, yet also more real. Love, after all, is not born from perfection, but from the quiet revelation of who we are, hidden and human. Their meeting lasted only minutes, yet within those minutes lay the promise of something greater. The traveler could not explain it, but he sensed that this encounter was not a fleeting accident. It was the beginning of a story written long before either of them had arrived at that fountain. Perhaps it was destiny, or perhaps it was magic, but whatever it was, it had found them both in the heart of a quiet village. And so, with the simplest of words, a journey began, not upon the road or across the miles, but within their hearts, where the true adventure of love always takes root. There are moments in life when silence says more than words, when a glance carries within it a depth that cannot be measured. From the beginning, there was something in her that did not belong entirely to the world around her. She moved with quiet grace, but behind her calm demeanor there lingered a weight, a truth unspoken. It was not the kind of secret born of shame or sorrow. It was different, more wondrous, as if she carried within her a key to something greater than either of them could yet understand. The traveler had felt it in their first meeting, though he could not have named it then. It was in the way her eyes lingered just a little longer than politeness required, in the sudden hush that seemed to surround her presence. At times she would smile as though she held knowledge too delicate for words, and though she spoke of everyday things, the flowers by the river, the quiet paths that wound through the fields, there was always the sense of another story hidden behind her voice. He began to notice how time seemed to bend when they were together. Minutes stretched into hours, and hours passed as lightly as a dream. There were days when he would recall her words later in solitude, only to find that they echoed inside him as though he had heard them long before. It was as if their conversations were not simply spoken, but remembered, threads woven across time, binding one heart to another, and she, too, seemed to feel it. Her laughter sometimes broke into silence, and in that silence she would look at him as though searching for the courage to share something too great, too fragile to entrust to ordinary speech. On one such evening, as the light of dusk painted the horizon with silver and rose, she sat beside him near the fountain where they had first met. Her hands trembled ever so slightly, and though her smile was steady, her voice carried a softness touched by hesitation. "There are things," she began, "that live in the world beyond what we see. Not all secrets are meant to be kept forever. Some are waiting for the right soul to understand them." Her words fell into the air like petals carried by the wind. He did not press her to explain, for he knew instinctively that the truth she held could not be forced. It must be given when she was ready. The days that followed only deepened his awareness of her mystery. She seemed to know things before they happened, small details of life that revealed themselves later with uncanny precision. Once she spoke of a letter that would arrive, though none had been sent. 2 days later, a messenger brought it, carrying news the traveler had longed to hear. Another time, she guided him away from a path near the cliffs, her voice urgent yet calm, and when he obeyed, they learned later that the ground had given way where they might have walked. These were not accidents, nor were they coincidences. They were the signs of something hidden within her, something luminous and strange. And yet, for all the wonder of it, her secret was not a burden. It was a bridge, invisible yet unbreakable, that stretched between them. He felt it in the quiet moments most of all, when she placed her hand gently upon his, when her eyes softened with the kind of affection that lingers long after words have been forgotten. What bound them was not merely chance or choice, but something greater, something timeless. He did not need to know the full shape of her secret to believe in it. What mattered was the way it made him feel, alive in a way he had never been, awake to the beauty of the world, and certain that some loves are written not upon paper, but upon the soul itself. He sensed that whatever mystery she carried, it belonged to both of them now, and it was guiding their hearts toward a destiny neither could yet see. And so, even without the whole truth revealed, he chose to trust the secret she bore, for it was not just hers to carry. It was theirs, and it was love's own quiet proof that what is meant to be will always find its way. There is a kind of love that does not rush, that does not demand the world to witness its birth. It begins quietly, in small exchanges and unguarded glances, and grows stronger not through grand declarations, but through the simplest of moments. Between the young traveler and the mysterious girl, it was never about the weight of eloquence or the urgency of desire. Instead, their bond deepened in the spaces between words, in the gentle pauses where hearts spoke more clearly than voices ever could. They would meet often, sometimes by design, other times by chance. though neither believed it was truly chance anymore. Each meeting carried with it the promise of something tender. A walk by the river became a chapter of laughter shared over the rippling water, as though the current itself carried their secrets downstream. A seat beneath the old oak tree turned into an hour of storytelling, where he spoke of roads yet to be traveled, and she listened as though every word painted a picture upon her heart. She, too, offered her tales, not of faraway lands, but of the village and the quiet beauty she found in its rhythms. Her voice softened when she spoke of the wildflowers that grew along the meadow path, and he, in turn, found himself seeing the world with new eyes, as if she had gifted him a lens through which everything seemed more alive. There was no need for constant speech between them. Sometimes they walked in silence, the kind of silence that feels full rather than empty, where the presence of the other was enough to make the air itself feel lighter. In those silences he would steal glances at her, noting the way her lips curved when she was lost in thought, or the way her eyes glimmered when the light caught them just so. And she, aware of his gaze, would meet it with a small smile, the kind of smile that needed no translation. It was in the little things that love whispered most clearly, the way she brushed a strand of hair from her face and his hand instinctively reached to help, the way she paused to admire the evening sky and he, without a word, followed her gaze until the colors of twilight belonged to them both. Even the way she laughed, sometimes soft, sometimes sudden, wrapped around him like a melody he never wanted to forget. Each moment, though fragile and fleeting, wove itself into something enduring. One evening, as the air cooled and the first stars began to appear, they sat together near the fountain once more. He told her about a dream he had, a dream of being lost in a forest and finding his way only by following the sound of her voice. She listened intently, and when he finished, her hand found his. "Perhaps," she whispered, "dreams are not so far from truth. Perhaps the heart knows where it belongs before the mind does." Her words were simple, yet they echoed with a depth that left him breathless. It was not a confession, not yet, but it was enough, for in that whisper he heard what he had long begun to feel, that their connection was not fragile, not fleeting, but steady as the stars above them. And though neither spoke of love in direct terms, they did not need to. Love was in every gesture, every shared silence, every word that seemed to linger just a little longer in the air between them. He began to realize that true affection is not measured by the loudness of its voice, but by the constancy of its presence. Their bond was not a flame that burned wildly only to fade. It was a steady light growing brighter with each passing day. Through these small conversations and gentle moments, something profound was taking shape, something that no distance or silence could undo. And so, while the world went on with its noise and its haste, they built a quiet language of their own, a language spoken in whispers of love. There comes a moment in every tender bond when life, with all its unkind demands, dares to test the strength of love. For the traveler and the mysterious girl, that moment arrived sooner than either had wished. Circumstances, like unseen waves, pulled at them until the thought of parting was no longer a shadow but a certainty. He had duties beyond the village, a road that called him onward, and she, bound by her own secret and her ties to the place she called home, could not follow. The knowledge of separation hung between them like a storm on the horizon, and yet it was not despair that filled their hearts, but something far more enduring. The days leading to his departure were colored with a heightened awareness. Every glance carried a weight, every word lingered longer than before. They walked together beneath skies painted with evening light, and each step felt like a memory being written. Though the hours slipped through their fingers like sand, they did not rush to fill them with dramatic confessions. Instead, they let their love breathe quietly, speaking through gestures more eloquent than speech. A hand held just a moment too long, a smile exchanged in silence, a pause when neither wished to move, for fear that time itself might move with them. When the final morning arrived, the traveler stood by the road that curved out of the village. His pack was light, yet it felt unbearably heavy because it carried the weight of absence. She came to him with her usual grace, though her eyes betrayed the emotion she fought to steady. He looked at her as though trying to memorize every detail, the fall of her hair, the softness of her voice, the very way she seemed to carry light around her. She, in turn, studied his face with the quiet sorrow of one who wishes to hold on and yet knows she must let go. Their farewell was not marked by grand gestures, nor was it a scene of weeping. It was something far stronger, built on the faith that love does not fade with distance but grows deeper in its longing. She placed a small ribbon in his hand, a token of her presence, and whispered that no matter where the road took him, he would never walk it alone. He answered not with promises too heavy to bear, but with the simple truth that his heart would always return to her, whether in dreams or in the quiet hours of dawn when her memory would rise like sunlight. The traveler left, his steps carrying him away from the village, but not away from her. For love has a way of defying miles, of weaving threads between souls that no distance can break. Though he wandered across fields and towns, though nights grew long and unfamiliar, he found her in the smallest of things. The scent of roses reminded him of the breeze that once carried her laughter. The sound of a fountain in another square carried him back to the place where their eyes first met. Even the silence of a starlit sky seemed filled with her voice, whispering softly as though she were never far. And she, though rooted to her village, felt him near in her own way. She would walk the meadow paths and imagine his footsteps alongside hers. She would stand by the river and hear his stories carried back to her in the murmur of the current. On nights when the world felt loneliest, she held onto the memory of his hand in hers, the warmth of his gaze, and it was enough to remind her that their love was not confined by distance. It lived beyond it, stronger than absence, stronger than time. In truth, it was this very test that gave their bond its depth. For what is love if it cannot endure separation? What is devotion if it falters when the beloved is out of reach? They discovered that love does not diminish in distance. It expands, filling every space between with unseen threads of longing and hope. Their souls remained tied, unbroken, each heartbeat echoing the other's across the miles. And so, though life placed roads and rivers between them, it could not sever what bound them together, for true love, once awakened, belongs not to the place where it began, but to the eternity where it endures. There are times when love feels so profound that it must be touched by something greater than human reason, something that belongs to the realm of wonder. For so long, the traveler had sensed there was more to her than met the eye. A light behind her gaze, a silence that held meaning, a presence that seemed almost otherworldly. And then, at last, the secret she had carried revealed itself, not as a burden, but as a gift that changed everything. It happened on a night when the world seemed hushed, as though nature itself waited in reverence. The sky shimmered with 1,000 stars, and the moon, full and bright, poured its silver glow across the meadow. She had asked him to walk with her, to follow a path he had not yet taken, a path that wound beyond the village and opened into a clearing surrounded by ancient oaks. There, in the stillness, she stood with her head slightly bowed, as though gathering the courage to step beyond silence. Her hand trembled as it reached for his, and when she finally spoke, her voice carried both fear and certainty. She told him that the bond between them was not born merely of chance, nor was it the simple affection of passing hearts. It was something written before time, a connection shaped by magic itself. She explained that she carried within her a gift passed down through generations, a gift that allowed her to sense what others could not, to know things that had not yet come to pass, to feel love not as fleeting emotion, but as eternal truth. The traveler listened, his breath caught between disbelief and awe. Yet even as she revealed what many would call impossible, he did not shrink away, for he had already known, in some unspoken part of his soul, that there was something extraordinary about her. The way she had guided him, the way she seemed to know his heart even before he spoke it, these were not coincidences. They were fragments of a truth now fully unveiled. With every word, the air around them seemed to change. A gentle wind stirred the branches above, and the stars glowed brighter, as if the heavens themselves bore witness to the revelation. She feared he might turn from her, that the mystery she revealed might place a distance between them, but his eyes never wavered. He stepped closer, holding her hands firmly, and told her that no secret, however wondrous or strange, could ever weaken what he felt. On the contrary, it only deepened his love, for it proved that what bound them was not ordinary, but destined. She wept then, not from sorrow, but from the release of a burden carried too long in silence. In his embrace her trembling ceased, for she knew at last that her truth had not driven him away. It had brought them closer than ever before. The power she held, once a secret she guarded with fear, now became a bridge between them. It was no longer hers alone, it belonged to both of them, woven into the fabric of their love. As the night deepened, she showed him the full measure of her gift. With a touch of her hand upon his heart, he felt a warmth spread through him, as though light itself had entered his soul. He saw flashes of memory and possibility, moments that belonged to their past and to their future, entwined together in one great tapestry. It was then he understood. Their love was not confined to this single span of life, but stretched across time, finding them again and again, no matter the age, no matter the distance. The impossible had become real, not through the power of reason, but through the power of love itself. Magic had revealed its truth, not as trickery, but as the purest form of connection, binding two souls who were always meant to be. He no longer feared what lay ahead, for he knew that nothing, not even the weight of time, could separate them now. And so, in that meadow under the eternal stars, the secret was no longer hidden, and love, at last, proved its power to conquer even the impossible. There are promises spoken loudly, made in haste or in moments of fire, and then there are promises that live in the quiet, uttered softly when the world is still. It was beneath such stillness that their final vow was born, not in ceremony or in the presence of others, but in whispers shared under the vast canopy of stars. After all that had tested them, distance, silence, secrets, and the unexplainable, there was nothing left to prove. What remained was the truth of their hearts, steady and eternal. The night was calm, the kind that carries a hush over the earth, when every sound seems softened by the velvet of the sky. They walked together to the meadow, where the grass bent gently beneath the wind, where the scent of wildflowers lingered, and the air seemed touched by something sacred. Above them, the stars scattered their light in endless patterns, shining as they had for centuries before, and as they would for centuries to come. It was under this endless sky that the traveler and the girl paused, the weight of their journey pressing tenderly upon them. He looked at her, and though he had gazed upon her many times before, something in that moment felt eternal. The curve of her smile, the quiet strength in her eyes, the way she carried both mystery and grace. It was as if he were seeing her not only as she was, but as she always had been and always would be. She, in turn, met his gaze with the stillness of one who understands that love is not bound to fleeting seasons, but belongs to the infinite. They did not rush to speak. Their silence was full, overflowing with everything they had endured, everything they had discovered, and everything they knew yet lay ahead. Finally, she reached for his hand, her fingers threading through his with a tenderness that spoke more than words ever could. When she spoke, her voice was soft, almost a breath, yet each word carried the weight of eternity. "Whatever comes, wherever life takes us, remember this," she whispered. "My love will not end with time, it will not fade with distance. It will live here in your heart and mine forever." Her words did not fall into the night unnoticed. They seemed to linger, carried by the breeze, lifted toward the stars, as if the universe itself had taken them into its keeping. He closed his eyes, holding her words within him, feeling them take root like a promise written not in ink but in the very fabric of his soul. When he answered, his voice was quiet but certain. "And mine for you. Even if oceans lie between us, even if years pass, I will find you again. In every lifetime, in every sky, I will love you still." The simplicity of their exchange was its strength. It was not dressed in ornament, not burdened by grandeur. It was honest, pure, and steady. In that meadow, with the heavens as their witness, they vowed to each other what countless lovers have longed to vow, that love is not a fleeting flame, but a fire that endures, a fire that no wind, no darkness, no turning of years can extinguish. The stars above seemed to shine more brightly, as if in answer. The night wrapped around them, not as a shroud, but as a shelter, holding them within its timeless embrace. They remained there for a while, hand in hand, speaking no more, because there was nothing left to add. Their love had been spoken, sealed not in paper or stone, but in the eternal language of the heart. And so, beneath the watchful sky, they made their timeless promise, and love, faithful and everlasting, became forever in the heart. Thank you for joining me on this magical journey of love, secrets, distance, and destiny. If these whispers of the heart touched you, let their promise live forever in your soul. Every story reminds us that true love can conquer even the impossible. Don't forget to hit the like button and share this story with someone you care about. And be sure to subscribe for more timeless tales that speak straight to the heart.